Hello, and welcome to our webinar on self-care for supervisors. I'm Amy Cook, BCBA and Community Manager from Rasmus. I want to go over a few things before we get started. First, you will all be eligible to earn one free supervision CEU if you're watching this live and complete a few requirements. We will share 3 keywords throughout the webinar that you will need to write down. After the webinar, I will share an online form for you to complete, and you will type in the 3 keywords to confirm your participation. A recording will be sent out to all registrants. However, only live participants are eligible to earn the CEU. The first keyword is self. Self, spelled S-E-L-F. Before I hand it over to our fabulous guest speaker, I want to share a little bit more about Rasmus. Rasmus is an ABA clinical software company that was inspired by our founder's son, Rasmus, who was diagnosed with autism early on in his life. Our goal is to help deliver the highest quality behavioral services to 1 million children with autism by helping the people who help them: behavior analysts, techs, teachers, parents, and clinical directors. We provide the best clinical platform so you can keep the focus on the child in front of you. With that said, our team wanted to help supervisors tackle burnout before we head into the busy holiday season. We knew Sarah would be the best guest speaker for this critical topic. I'm going to let Sarah introduce herself and get us started. I'll stop sharing my screen. So
Hey,
you can take over.
hi, everybody. I will share my screen. Let's get it started. How does this look to everybody?
It looks
Good.
great.
Yay. Awesome. And then Amy, I just texted you really fast whenever you have a chance. I just want to make sure that I have my keyword. I think I have it, but just, okay, good.
You got it.
Yeah,
Anywhere in the middle.
Yeah, I usually try to be pretty prepared. This is not my first rodeo. So hi, I'm so grateful to spend some time with y'all this morning. And I do definitely agree, Amy, that, kind of going into the holidays, I love now that literally like November 1st then becomes the holidays. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed that. It's like everyone's just automatically switching. And one of my favorite things that I saw on a social media post last week was that we've entered the let's circle back after the holidays season of work. Yeah, Thanksgiving's in 2 weeks, and there's so much stuff going on. And sorry, I think this is a great opportunity to just kind of take a chance to talk about what it means to be an effective supervisor and why taking care of yourself really matters. Because I think it's just something that we don't talk about enough in behavior analysis. I also just realized I am not doing this as a slideshow, so let me get my stuff together. Here we go. Amazing. By the way, everything that I'm talking to you guys about today, I'm going to give to you. So I have a QR code at the end of this presentation, and you can have the slides. I put in some articles that I think are interesting that I referenced. But I'm generally when I speak, I want everyone to always have you get everything. I think that's really important, especially when it comes to anything that might be helpful around taking care of yourself, being a better and more effective supervisor, leader, just living a better human life in general. I think all of those things should be freely shared. So as I stated, I'll give you a QR code and you can have everything at the end. And I'm also happy if there's some kind of burning questions that anyone has. I don't know, Amy, if it's possible for you to just kind of monitor the chat, and you can really feel free to interrupt me if you think that there's a point that someone's made or a question that someone's asked that you think would be relevant to everybody. I'm happy, to chat as well. I always think it's, great. I always think it's slightly strange. I'm just I'm sitting in this room by myself and Amy's in a room by herself maybe. And we're all trying to interact and talk to each other. And so I like to, we're gonna have some group participation so we can try to create a little more community in the time that we have together. So, hey, what's up? I'm Sarah. I don't look like my fancy headshot picture because this is real life and it's Wednesday. I'm a single mom. I have a lot of stuff going on. So you are getting me in my gym clothes, but I put on jewelry. And that's where I'm living in life. And, that's okay. And I'll give you guys a pitch for why I hope that you'll listen to me for, the next hour-ish instead of, answering emails or scrolling your FYP. And it's this. I've been in this field a spectacularly long time. I was the 1,642nd certificate, BCBA certificate, which I always tell people means that I am from the Jurassic age of behavior analysis. I will be certified for 20 years next year. I emailed the BACB and asked if I was going to get like a prize or maybe like a puppy for my 20th year of certification. They were like, Sarah, that's not how we work. So that's a disappointment to me. But I've been doing this work since I was 19 years old. I started my own ABA organization in the San Francisco Bay Area in 2004. I ran it for 15 years. I sold it to Cadient Behavioral Health and exited that business 4 years ago. I've served as the president of the California Association for Behavior Analysis. I was a founding board member of the Council of Autism Service Providers. But mostly, what I hope that you'll be interested in listening to today is, my deep and, kind of unwavering desire for all of us to be able to figure out how to do this work easier, if that makes sense. And, not by compromising, our personal lives or our health and well-being. And I think this has been a pretty, again, neglected component of behavior analytic services. And, I'll share some data with you to kind of contextualize why this is so important to me. But I'm not anyone's boss anymore. I don't have, any other kind of like dual relationships. I'm just here because I want you to like feel great. I want you to give you some perspective and science around what you can do. And because I believe that, people that are in a great space themselves are people that can do great work, no matter what it is. And so that's me. So let's get this show on the road. I always present like on the, like my PDFs, and I never know if these work or not. Okay. We're going to do group participation. I know you're just like, this is amazing. My life has changed, Sarah, since you introduced this. So if you guys want to pick up this QR code on your phone, what this is going to take you to is a Slido, which I love to use because it allows us to be, I can get feedback from you. And so like, don't sweat it if you didn't grab the code, I'll just share it to you. Okay, here's the same code. So you can either do the QR code or you can go to slido.com and just enter in that code, and then we can get the opportunity to kind of chat with each other. I'll give everyone a second to get the code. Okay, we are going to start. Okay, first question. If you have to use one word to describe what you deal with on a daily basis at work, what would it be? I'm curious. One word that describes what you're dealing with. Chaos. Barriers, relationships, stress, BS, anxiety, fires, everything, stress, chaos. And so obviously what this Slido does is this is a word cloud. And the more that a specific word is used, the larger it becomes. So far, it's looking like stress and chaos are kind of like the words and what's going on for a lot of you on a daily basis. Babysitting, brain fog, these never cease to entertain me very much. But also I think is a really great way for us to kind of understand like just the vast complexity of stuff that we are dealing with in behavior analysis. Totality, parents, burnout, anxiety, adults, compassion, but chaos and stress are like the two greatest things. Thank you. This is awesome. I love this. Okay. Next part. What's the most reinforcing part of your job? And I know it might take a little bit for people to write this down. Kids, growth, staff development, client growth, progress, little wins, meaningful outcomes, success. Seeing the difference. Yeah. helping families connect with their children, seeing the success of others. That's great. And so also I love with this, you can kind of see if there are themes that continue to be written about. Right now, the number one thing we have is progress. Second one, yeah, growth, clients, and making a positive difference. Laughter. That's awesome. Perfect. Okay. There's a couple more people going, but I'm just going to go to the next one. How would you rate your current state of well-being? And this is just, you get to decide. This is a little like subjective, but also well-being. In some senses, there's objective measurement and subjective measurement. I'm asking you guys to be subjective. And we're rating this to kind of see, I'm taking the pulse of everybody. Okay, this tracks for me. So most of you guys are kind of feeling like my well-being is optimal some days and not optimal others. Some of you guys are struggling that your well-being doesn't feel optimal most of the time. There's also folks where you're like, hey, my well-being is like optimal. That's great. Thank you for that information. Yeah, I love doing these just because it allows me to just kind of like see what's going on for you. And also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, like we started with like, the first, like what's the one word that describes your day? Chaos, challenge, etc. But then at the same time, when you ask what was most reinforcing to everybody, you guys are all pretty much on the same page. And obviously, one of the huge pieces that allows us to continue to deal with chaos, burnout, anxiety, challenging parents, micromanaging is that there is a lot of values alignment around the type of work that we do, and that's reflected in your responses. Thank you. Okay. Just a sec. I'm going to take this off full screen and we're going to go back to my presentation. I always love to share this data with everybody because, again, part of what I'm trying to do here is to contextualize this conversation about well-being. And so if you are like me and at night you look at data from the Behavior Analyst Certification Board as a way to wind down, you might also have this information already. So the BCB usually on like a quarterly basis will update all of the current certification numbers. So this last update happened about a month ago. And as of October 2nd this year, there are almost, we're close to 65,000 behavior analysts worldwide. For the first time in this data set that I've noticed, the number of BCABAs actually decreased. And typically what I've seen the trend is that like 4 or 5 BCABAs, are certified every time the BCBA reports this, but this is the first time it's actually decreased by 5. Because I'm such a nerd, I looked and compared and contrasted the data from last time. And obviously, like the wildly insane number we're looking at here is the number of RBTs. So there are, getting close to 152,000 RBTs worldwide. And this is, an astounding number, especially given that this certification has only been around for less than 10 years. And that number, to have it be in the 6 figures already is insane to me and really representative of the growth that we've been experiencing. But I want to talk about these data points really fast and why this matters. So if you go to the BACB website, all of the certificate data points on their graphs, you can click into and it'll give you specific numbers relative to year. So for example, in 2018, which was 5 years ago, there were 32,000 behavior analysts worldwide. If you look at 2023, and the reason there is an asterisk behind 2023 is obviously the year isn't over yet. So this number will increase as we bring the year to a close. There are now almost 65,000 behavior analysts that have been certified. What is interesting about this? Well, what this data is telling us is that more than half of our field has less than 5 years of experience. And if you guys are in a supervisory role, which most folks are that work in behavior analysis, you are likely feeling the pressure of this. if you look at the growth of behavior analysis relative to other allied fields, maybe like speech therapy or occupational therapy, their growth rate is like a pretty kind of like steady, climb. If you look at the data from the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, the growth of our field really looks a lot more like Mount Everest, or like Mount Kilimanjaro, which means that we have had rapid growth in a very short amount of time. Obviously, the primary variable that has impacted this is the passage of autism health insurance mandates in every state in the country. The last state to pass it was Tennessee, which was in 2019. And so there are so many opportunities for our clients and their families to be able to obtain behavior analytic services. This has, created, an incredible demand for this work that I think can be so life-changing. And it also has put anyone that works in this field in a pressure cooker. And that's just the fact. There's not enough folks to provide the service. We know this. We have, the current American workforce that is available to work any job in the United States is one of the lowest kind of in recent times. And that's because we have historic low birth rates. We have a lot of folks that are retiring out of the baby boomer generation. They're retiring out of the workforce. You have less and less people that are working full time. And so this has also created, very intensive labor shortages. So we have high demand for services. We have a shortage of labor, and we also have a very, very inexperienced workforce. So that creates kind of the perfect storm for an incredible amount of pressure and stressors, specifically on supervisors. Here's one of my favorite parts of the ethics code that I think really deserves to be fleshed out a lot more, but I am glad that at least there is this piece of this in our code, because in other professions, this is much more kind of operationalized and discussed. And it's this little piece here. It's 1.10, which says, all of us need to have awareness of our personal biases and challenges, and that we will maintain awareness that our personal biases and challenges, which could be, mental, physical, health conditions, legal, anything, that this might interfere with our effectiveness in our professional work. And it's our ethical responsibility to take appropriate steps to resolve interference and to ensure that our professional work is not compromised, and to document all of the actions taken in this circumstance and the eventual outcome. This is very serious language, because this is like our ethics code. But the way that I conceptualize this is basically like, hey, there's always going to be stuff going on for all of us, and we're all going to have personal biases and challenges. We understand that in terms of like how, learning histories work and reinforcement histories work. But what this is also saying, though, is that there's stuff going on that's really going to impact your ability to be effective, that you got to look at it. You got to take steps to examine it. You got to take steps to be able to alleviate it. And this to me is where the conversation about well-being fits. I don't think, it's fair to expect that folks that are working with usually very vulnerable populations with incredibly stressed family systems and complex, often, medical and mental health needs with a very young workforce, that's a lot. And so how we do a better job about identifying specifically and using, precision around what is it that's making this, really hard? How can we, alleviate this through, evidence-based practice and thoughtfulness and again, analysis of the variables that are kind of at play here. But I think for a long time, and I don't know for those of you guys that are on this webinar, how you were kind of trained as a behavior analyst. But I remember, in one of my earlier jobs, when I was maybe, 25, I had a really hard day once. And I happened to have a meeting with my supervisor. And I remember coming in and I was talking to him about it, and I started to cry. And he looked at me and he's like, I need you to grow up, and I need you to leave my office, and I need you to come back when you can get it together. And I remember, this is probably in like 2001. I'd never had anyone really kind of speak to me that way. And I think for so much of like culturally in America and even in behavior analysis, there's been this thing of like, we do this really good thing, so you need to separate who you are as a person out of it. And despite the fact that we work with humans and often are dealing with, compassion, fatigue, moral injury, and a lot of, other challenges, just suck it up and like figure it out. And I believe that culturally speaking, and also as an industry, we're recognizing that this actually isn't effective. And we need to do something different. And everyone is human. And so what do we do? How do we do it? What should we focus on? I included this article in the Google Drive that I'll share with you guys at the end of this presentation, because it examines the science of moods. And this was a really great research study that was done. I think this research was published maybe about like 20 years ago, that really looks at the brain's, our limbic system, which is our emotional center. And so our limbic system is open loop. And I think it's important to understand this kind of part of neuroscience. So an open loop system depends on external sources to manage itself versus like a closed loop system. And so, what this article said and what this research was looking at is that, in other words, we rely on connections with other people to determine our moods, which of course actually aligns with behavior analysis. Like we are the product of all of the different stimuli in our environment. Our behavior is connected to this constellation of stimuli, and we can manipulate different variables in our environment to, in fact, change behavior. And why our open limbic system is so important in terms of evolution is it makes sure that we care about others in order to perpetuate the existence of our species. So for example, if I didn't have an open loop system and maybe I had a child and they were crying, maybe like back hundreds of years ago, I would have left my kid there to cry. Maybe they were hurt. Maybe they, needed sustenance, but that just wouldn't be something that I would engage in. And so the reason that this matters, and if you guys decide to kind of delve into this article, and I hope that you do, is what this research found is the single greatest factor that impacted the well-being and performance of organizations was the mood of the leaders. Like if you're coming in hot and you're raging and we're, all in this open loop system, and so that is the behavior that you're engaging in, then the people that you're working with are then coming in contact with that behavior. And I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this before, but it's like a cascading effect. If you have people at the top that are upset, that don't have the ability to appropriately communicate what's going on with them, don't have an ability to give feedback that is meaningful without tearing someone down, this then has terrible collateral effects on organizations. And again, I think in behavior analysis, we focus so much on the technology of what it means to be a supervisor as it relates to like clinical skill. But I don't know that we have focused as much or really kind of taught people, but how do you do it in a way that allows you to maintain your own emotional state? Because there's also great neuroscience and research to show that when all of us are stressed, our ability to make decisions narrows like this. And I may have included this article for you. We do not know how to make different decisions when we are stressed, because our brain literally, in order to try to manage all of this, starts to kind of close. And I'm sure you guys have all worked in settings and with leaders, or maybe you are that leader, where when you can kind of maintain your own ability to listen to others, be introspective, have that pause before you react to something, then this also is the model that you are showing for others, right? Because you're like one of the most important people in their environment, and your staff take their cues from you. And so really looking at how like your mood and, again, like the science of that has like a massive impact on the efficacy and efficiency of the work that you do, irrespective of the discipline. And we just have not really talked about like, well, how do you, in the midst of constantly changing kind of goalposts, demand that is never ceasing, labor shortages, and new certificates, how do we stay in a place where we can show up the way that we want to be and be the kind of supervisor and leader that we want to be. And one of the only answers is we have to take our well-being into consideration and understand what it is. So the World Health Organization, their definition of health like clearly underscores the importance of well-being, because I mean, obviously, like we know this. I mean, being healthy is not merely just like the absence of, disease or infirmity, but it's also the presence of social connection. Social connection, if you look at research that has been like longitudinal research that's been done around what are things that are going to help you live longer? What does it mean to live a good life? These are lots of questions people ask. Social connection and relationships is the number one thing. There's science to show that people that live more connected lives and have strong relationships, you don't have to have a lot of them, but you have to have a few, live longer. And well-being is, of course, a broad construct that, has multiple dimensions. And these are, usually like objective and subjective dimensions. I mean, obviously, if you look at the like kind of wellness, culture in the United States and like the wellness industry, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I wish it was as simple as me telling you to have turmeric in your coffee or, to buy a yoni egg from Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. But it's not. It's an inside job, and it's also actually not expensive. And I'm going to talk about that. Well-being isn't a massage. I mean, those can feel good, and feel free to get one. I enjoy them deeply. It's not a manicure. It's not a mental health day. We're going to talk about what it actually is. That's rooted in science and research. I love this quote, and this is from one of my favorite books. So if you guys ever are like, I need a book that I can like read, but like put down if I need to. Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle is just like a heavy hitter for me. It was written by two twin sisters, Emily and Amy Nagoski, and they did a very, very deep dive on neuroscience research, psychology research around like what's going on and how can you kind of manage burnout. And I think that this quote is a really great way to kind of conceptualize this, because so often in the work that I do, I work, of course, with a lot of young practitioners because a lot of folks are young. The major, question people ask is like, well, how can I avoid this? I don't want to come in contact with this. And, managing burnout or stressors, it's not about experiential avoidance. It's about how do you learn the skills? And I always like do this motion with my hand. I can't help myself when I talk about it, to be able to flow. And so what Emily Nagoski's saying is just like, hey, being well isn't like never coming in contact with hard stuff, because guess what? That's not realistic. Life is hard. I mean, facts. Life is hard. No matter what you're doing, how you do it, it's hard. Being well is being able to go into these states where maybe we're really stressed out. Maybe we're scared. Maybe we're super excited. And then being able to have the skills and understanding to be able to flow out of it. So well-being and your well-being is fluid, like so many things in life. It's nuanced. It's not like only this or not that, but it's rather understanding that stuff's hard. Weird stuff and crappy stuff is going to happen. You guys all identified that chaos and stress are the two words that you would, use most likely to describe your day. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the issue that really starts to become detrimental is if you get stuck in it. And that's where I think a lot of people really have challenges, is like how like this day sucked or this horrible thing happened. And it's like consuming me and I don't know how to flow with it and to flow back into a calmer state that will allow me to make better decisions. And frankly, that just feels better. I love this index from the Mayo Clinic. They have something called the Wellbeing Index, and it's an assessment tool that calculates risk. So it's not diagnostic in nature, but it's very simple. And they've validated this in like 8 different medical professions. So for example, 45,000 nurses have taken the Wellbeing Index. It's free. It hasn't been validated for behavior analysts, of course. And so you can look it up and take it if you want to, but you have to kind of like figure out where we might fit in. I think that how I identified myself was like, an other health professional. But I think this is a great tool to just give people like some insight and understanding. So what you do is if you take the well-being index, you answer, it's just 9 questions, and they're rated on different types of dimensions of stress. And then you're given results automatically, and then your results are benchmarked within the results of other people that are in similar positions to you. And what the Mayo Clinic has done in a lot of hospital systems is the whole system has used this well-being index, and this has been, it's all anonymous. So it's not about like, I hate it when people have these kind of things and then like weaponize them against people. Like, well, did you see the answer that so-and-so had? That's not how this works. It's rather just to provide insight to both the, practitioner themselves, or, the leadership and administration in the hospital or medical system they work in, of maybe we should pay attention to some stuff a little more. Because chances are, again, like if you guys look at the data that you had from the Slido, chaos and stress were the 2 number 1 questions, and those were came up the most often. Then if I'm an administrator and I'm working within your system and I'm like, gosh, a lot of people are saying that their day is stress and chaos, what might be helpful for me is to like dig a little deeper. What does that mean exactly? Are there, things going on, or policies or procedures or operational, kind of contingencies that are maybe unnecessarily increasing the chaos and stress? Are there, skill deficits within my clinicians that really need to be addressed to help them maybe better manage it? But again, as behavior analysis continues to mature, I'm hopeful that more and more of these types of tools will emerge, because it's very meaningless for any of us to go to a supervisor or colleague and just be like, I'm exhausted, because it's not precise. And we are people that are all about the language of precision and analysis in order to be able to create change that is meaningful and effective. So we got to do the same stuff with each other. I'm realizing our time. I'm going to do the secret word. So you want me to just say it, Amy, or should I write it in the chat too?
Yes, you can just say it.
Oh, it's care, CARE. I mean, I think everyone can spell it. This is how you can tell you used to be a teacher. I don't know why I just spelled it for you. We're all adults here, but care.
I always spell it just because I'm like, just in case someone didn't hear it or whatever, but
I mean, who knows? I also sometimes can have a rapid rate of speech. And so that's a cue for me to like slow it down. Yes. Care.
And I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Sarah, just in case anyone got on a few minutes late. There are 3 keywords. So hopefully you heard the first word. If not, you can send me a private message. But there's going to be 3 keywords that you'll put in to confirm your participation, and I'll be giving you the last keyword. So thank you, Sarah. You can keep going.
Welcome. Okay. I worked on this behavior analysis burnout assessment tool that I think we introduced it in like February of 22. Yes. And we've had over 1,600 behavior analysts complete it. And so it's just given us some really interesting insight into what's going on with folks. And I wanted to just kind of share a couple, I think, key findings with you. We asked a very specific question around sleep. And it was so fascinating to me because, and this is again, self-reported, about 84 or 80.4% of folks were saying, hey, I'm sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night. We had about 12% of folks that were like, yeah, I'm sleeping less than 5. I always say that percentage of people are working mothers, like over and over again. Who is not sleeping? It's the moms out there. Shout out to all of you. I mean, shout out to all the parents, but especially to the working moms. And then there was about 7.5% of people that slept more than 8 hours. I would like to know who these people are. I'm jealous of them. Do you have any tricks for us? Because like I can't sleep more than 8 hours, so I'm happy for you. But this is why I'm showing you this slide, because great, people overall like self-reporting like, oh, like I sleep pretty well, but you're not rested. And this is where the data got really interesting, because we used previously validated tools from IO psychology. So like the Oldenburg burnout inventory, which is, widely regarded as, highly effective and precise, the self-care assessments. And if you look at the responses in these, people are tired and people are exhausted before they even get to work. So, the Oldenburg burnout inventory, the question was, after my work, I usually feel worn out and weary. Yeah, you are. In the lower left quadrant, one of the questions was, I take time for relaxation every day. And if you look at the responses, it looks like most of you are not necessarily taking time for relaxation every day. My favorite one is in the top right quadrant, which is I avoid overcommitment in work responsibilities. I mean, I'm just looking at all of you. I'm looking at myself too. I think this is the number one thing that I notice in behavior analysis is there's not enough folks to do all the work. There's an incredible amount of pressure for especially supervisors and leaders to continuously take on more. And this results in very, very intensive overcommitment to work responsibilities. And then the last one, it's cut off a little bit, but the question was, I take breaks throughout the workday. And some people are doing it and some people aren't. I always like to talk to everyone and ask, like, can you tell me the last time you ate a meal during work that was not something that was during a meeting while you were walking or in your car? And most people don't know, because often we compromise our time for, relaxing or, mindless, like scrolling on your phone, which has a purpose sometimes, or eating, because we're trying to fit in that one other thing. We're trying to do all the things because we are overcommitting to our work responsibilities. We're not relaxing. And so at the end of the day, we're feeling pretty worn out. So now that I've painted this like really happy and amazing picture, that is a joke. I always have people be like, thank you, Sarah, for making me feel depressed. And that's not my goal here, but my goal is to be clear. And to, again, contextualize like what's going on. And let's talk about what's going on with precision, because we can't work on something and improve something if we don't know what it is. So here's my first kind of tool for you guys to use around your well-being. And I love to use pictures. I don't know if you notice this. I don't use notes when I talk. I only talk about stuff that I have a lot of fluency in. And, I like to be dynamic and I always want to be able to answer questions. So again, while I'm talking, if you guys have questions, feel free to go. But this hand is supposed to be representative, this graphic of boundaries. And that has been one of the most challenging kind of skills that I have for me personally as a behavior analyst have had to develop. And I think for most of us kind of figuring out what are our boundaries, and often because we are dynamic people and we're growing and changing, our boundaries often, kind of grow and change over time, which is totally fine. But this really is important, especially as it relates to the overcommitment of work. And I think for most folks in behavior analysis, if you look at the data from the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, the very, very huge majority of people that are doing this work are women. And for many women, especially if you were raised in the United States, and depending also on your own kind of like cultural or maybe racial identity, we have been socialized and we have a learning history from a very young age to center our sense of self, to reflect on whether we are a good person related to what we do for other people. And when that happens, it makes it very hard to learn how to listen to yourself, and to also be able to have skills and an understanding of who you are, just as you. And not contingent on what you're doing for others or what other people can get from you. And so the boundaries at work, I see this really often. And what I would really encourage you guys to do, I think sometimes people confuse boundaries with control. And having boundaries is not about controlling anyone else, because you can't. Boundaries are simply about what are things that you need in order to show up in your life as the person that you want to, in order to maintain that emotional, really maintain a kind of more level emotional state, so you can show up as the leader that you want. So you have the space in your brain to make really good decisions, because you are not necessarily in this stressed state, and you can have better flow. And I think in behavior analysis, especially for young folks, there has been this very intensive pressure to try to do everything, to try to never, kind of make mistakes. And that's simply not how life works. And it's not helpful for anybody. And I think for a lot of people that are in leadership and supervisory positions, we have been taught that being an effective supervisor or leaders means that, I call it being like a human shield, that your job is to have your staff not come into contact with negative experiences or punishing experiences that they don't want, because it's your job to kind of stand in front of it and absorb the blows, so to speak. And I would like to challenge you to maybe rethink that being an effective supervisor or leader isn't preventing your staff from coming in contact with the challenging or like really hard things in life, but rather it's to provide them with the skills and support for them to be able to get through it and to the other side. And that is a very different way of approaching leadership and supervision, when you're not the one that's like, I'm taking it for the team. I'm going to deal with this. Like, oh, they're angry. I'm not going to help skill develop you. I'm just going to manage this myself. You can't do it all the time. And it also doesn't allow the people that you're working with, especially people that are working under you, to grow professionally. Whether you think that like generationally, people don't have resilience or have resilience, and it doesn't really matter, but more what I think is really important, especially in work environments, and especially in like behavioral health and like human service environments, is being in an environment where we are constantly looking to improve, where there is safety around saying that I'm not sure, because when you can say that I don't know, that allows other people to potentially help you learn new skills and to expand your repertoires, and also to respect the autonomy of all the folks that you work with, that, everyone's going to have to learn how to deal with stuff. You can't make people do it or not, but boundaries really allows you to just kind of center like, hey, here's what I can do and here's what I can't. And people are allowed to not like your boundaries. That's okay. Again, you can't control what other people think, but that doesn't mean that you have to change them. And so I boundaries are like, just like anything, it's something that you have to build up fluency with. And so often I speak and people are just like, I decided I'm just, I'm never going to work again after 4 p.m. And I was like, well, do you think that's realistic? Or maybe, an easier boundary to establish and have some fluency with, and to create some behavioral momentum with, might be, I'm going to eat lunch sitting down 3 times a week because I need to eat for sustenance, and it feels good to just have a break, and just kind of establishing those types of habits. Or I'm not going to answer my email after 7 p.m. But again, just kind of really looking at how can you, in service to really wanting to show up to your job as the person that you like to be, and also in service to being able to have longevity in your career, right? Like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. How can you look at ways to have boundaries and to practice them? And I think for a lot of people, you might even need to spend a little time thinking about, like, what are my boundaries? Because chances are you might not know. I certainly didn't for a long time. But I think really understanding boundaries, especially as it relates to women that are working in behavior analysis, and finding ways to just kind of build that muscle, build that fluency, build those kind of successes, starts to then allow you to like decrease that chaos and stress, because you in fact are not being you're not as much in chaos and stress, because you have identified and are being clear around like what you can do and what you can't. And that's free, but it takes work for you. It's definitely a response effort, but there's no one that there's not like a boundary app you can buy that's going to magically happen. There's not like a boundary dust that I can sprinkle, because if I had it, I'd give it to you. But it's just kind of incrementally thinking like small steps, shaping these behaviors and repertoires to help you, be able to just carve out that time and space for yourself to just bring it down a notch, Okay, next one. Ooh, look at this. I love bright yellow. It gets everyone's attention. I would like to say for the record, I don't like bananas. Everyone always looks at bananas when they're talking about health. I don't like them. They taste weird. I don't like the texture. But if you want to eat a banana, like, go ahead. But that was the only thing with this, in this graphic, I was like, I want to take the bananas out because I hate bananas. And this is not me making a plug for you to like join a gym or go on like a keto diet or any of that shit. No, what I'm telling you is that your body is the vessel that carries you through your life. That's true. If someone has figured out how to go through life without your body, I'm really interested because I've never seen it happen. And if you think that you can't, or that you can go through life in the way that you want, and to have, great emotional regulation, and to have less stress, and to be energized, and not take care of your body, you are wrong. And there are millions of research studies to show that that is not the right choice to make. But what does this mean? And again, there's a lot of pseudoscience out there around like health and well-being. And I'm not here to try to like tell you to do one thing or not another thing. I'm just going to give you kind of like some basic facts around like what helps people's bodies become vessels that carry them through life, and how can you make it, where you can decrease the amount of pain that you are having it in your life, and just make it more joyful. Here are the basics. Sleep. And that's why we asked that question at the beginning of the survey. The impact of sleep deprivation on your brain, like all types of places in your body, is huge. I'll give you an example. I went to bed on Monday night. I didn't get to bed till midnight. I'm not someone that stays up till midnight, but I had like thoughts racing in my head, and I usually have like some breathing exercises that I'll engage in, but it just wasn't working. I get up at 5 a.m. So yesterday I got up at 5 a.m. and I had 5 hours of sleep, and I'm someone that usually gets 7. And so how did that manifest for the rest of my day? I was crankier with my kid. I was more tired. I ate foods that I don't usually eat. I like my brain, and I had like kind of brain fog like earlier in the evening. Sleep is important. And so you got to sleep. You also need to like drink water and eat food. And again, not necessarily, just like in passing or when you have a chance, but hydration and nourishment, these are crucial pieces for you to take care of this vessel that is like allows you to do all the things that you want to do in your life. And the last piece of this is, again, like simple. It's walking, whether that's on a treadmill, whether that's outside. There's really, really great research to show the efficacy of, especially if you were feeling upset about something at work, or you're having a hard time kind of figuring out what's the right answer. Taking 15 minutes and going outside and on a walk and just like breathing air. It's not listening to headphones, not on scrolling, but just being in nature helps. That's why, I mean, if you read any Walden's work, if you look at like Walden too, even like B.F. Skinner's work, he very much understood the connection that being in the world and being able to consume like the stimuli of our world and nature has on your brain and your ability to, again, flow through some of these like agitated states. And so sure, if you want to get fancy and run a marathon, I mean, be my guest. If you want to, do some like crazy weight training program, okay, like I don't care. But you got to sleep, and you got to eat, and you got to drink water, and you got to walk, and you got to spend some time outside. And those should be, I hope, for everyone, things that are readily available to you in your life that doesn't cost you more money, but it does require you, going back to that other slide, to have some boundaries, and then also to make it a priority in what you do. Lastly, I love pictures of people that look like they're having fun together. But there's actually a purpose around this, and it's something that I talked about at the beginning. In the behavior analyst burnout assessment, one of the slides asked, or one of the questions was, do you make sure that you carve out time to engage in reinforcing activities every day? And for a lot of people, they don't. And so one of my biggest kind of strategies that I provide to leaders that I work with and to organizations is to get a life. Like, I love this work. I've been doing it, since I was 19 years old. That's 28 years for me. But let me be clear. This is what I do. It's not who I am. I have relationships with other people that have nothing to do with behavior analysis. I have interests in other things that have nothing to do with behavior analysis. I am someone personally, I love to go to the gym, and I've been doing like a progressive weightlifting program. I've been reading really interesting books. I like to travel. When you make sure that you are living a life and living the life you want, that's like has tons chock full of reinforcing events happening all the time, the impact of this at your job is going to be that you will not be as stressed out. There is a really interesting thesis that was published by an MBA candidate out of Wharton that looked at why so many high performing CEOs have like obsessive hobbies. And what this showed was really interesting is that these obsessive hobbies and having something really like meaningful for this impact, like something that this CEO was passionate about outside of work, allowed them to be more effective in their job because there was more balance for them in their lives because their work wasn't the only thing. And I think sometimes, again, like in our field, we've kind of sold, a lot of like folks in behavior analysis, like this idea of like, you are changing the world and everything we do is so precious. This should be like the only thing you think about. And I actually think that that's not helpful. What I think is helpful is to say, hey, we have this incredible technology and we have the privilege and opportunity to use this technology in a very like deeply connected human way to help other humans live their best lives. And man, what a gift. And that doesn't mean that you can't do other things or be focused on other stuff. And in fact, if you have more connected relationships, if you're engaging in reinforcing activities, this will allow you to be better at that thing. And there's connection there. And that's the thread that I think we've really missed in behavior analysis. Like, love your job. Don't make your job your life. It's not. I don't care where you work, whether that's with Rasmus or any other organization. Truly, I give zero craps where you work. I just want you to be a whole person when you're doing it, because I really, really care about the folks that are recipients of service. And man, when we're exhausted and we're not eating and we have no boundaries around what we're doing and we're constantly, allowing work commitments to overshadow other things that we have going on in our lives, well, gosh, it doesn't feel great. And guess what? All of us deserve to have a life. Like that's the richness of life. And if you live a connected life, that's actually the key to longevity. It's not the only thing that will impact your life, but really, truly, I mean, I think that all of us can agree. I don't know a single person when they were kind of like facing, their imminent death that said, well, I really wish I took on those 5 more clients and maybe had, hundreds more hours at work. No one says it, and you're not going to say it either. And again, if you want to have longevity in your career, if you want to be able to really kind of manage the very intensive kind of complexities and variables, especially in behavior analysis, having and just understanding your own boundaries, being able to understand the connection between how you take care of this vessel that allows you to do this work, and then having a life and having relationships and doing things that are important to you. These are the most effective ways to decrease that chaos and stress that you're feeling on a daily basis. And that's the thing, like it's simple and it isn't, right? All of this requires response effort. This requires work by you. I can't do it for you. But also I don't want to, because that would rob you of the opportunity to really understand yourself better and to be able then to model and support the other folks that you're working with to do this better too. And that's the golden ticket. It's showing up every day and trying to do the best you can. And when you screw up, being able to be like, well, shit, I screwed that up. All of us are sometimes. And being able to have the flow with each other, being able to really identify clearly, like, hey, again, like operationally, are we making this harder than we need to be? And actually it's taking more time and looking at how can we create an environment that is supportive of the well-being of everyone. And then you go to bed, hopefully get your 7 hours, and you wake up again and you do it the next day. And, that's life. And I think it's great. This is your QR code. So you can get all the You can get the slides that I shared with you guys. You have, I think I maybe put in maybe like 4 or 5 articles. There's some that are behavior analytic. I gave you guys the Harvard leadership article, but just if you're, want to have some additional reading around this, because I never expect anyone, in a 55-minute presentation to like magically walk away with all the answers. But I think if you're curious about this, what I hope is that this, can just kind of give you some perspective, especially outside of behavior analysis. I think it's really important to read, research, and to consume information that's not us. Because spoiler alert, there's lots of other stuff going on in the world and interesting things that matter. So we should pay attention to them. And if nothing else, I just hope that, even if you're walking away from our time together today with just a couple ideas of things that you can do that can immediately help you feel better in your life, that are not going to cost you money, and maybe it'll take a little bit of your time, then I'll consider this talk a success. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was truly amazing. Our last keyword is matters, because self-care matters. And I just want to say that wherever you are on this journey, because it's truly a journey as a behavior analyst, as well as our well-being, that I know this isn't going to be a magic over the night fix, but I hope there's at least some takeaway, whether you're at the stage where you just need to accept that, hey, I am stressed out and I do need to prioritize my well-being, or maybe you've been there and you've already made some progress, but you needed a little check-in. Sarah truly has so many wonderful resources, and she's here to help us all. So I will be sending a newsletter out, and I'm going to go ahead and add in a link in there, Sarah, with your resources, so that you guys can have that there as well.
I did get this question, by the way. I want to answer this. It says, with all this great information, how do we help to get our field to change when the foundation of our field does not have great boundaries? This is what I would say. Then you model the boundary. That's the only way. I mean, truly, like I always tell people, and I know this is being recorded, but I speak very plainly, don't work for assholes, right? The more that you work for assholes, that you're reinforcing the behavior. This is behavior analysis. So if our field doesn't have great boundaries, and there's always this pressure or, assumed pressure to kind of do more, the only thing that you can control is yourself. Then you say no, or you do something different. And that's it. Again, like it's not a magical solution, but until people understand that, like, all I can do is control myself, and I want to be a model for being the best clinician I can, for, asking really interesting questions, for really being concerned about clinical quality. And also I am a human person. And if I need to pick my kid up from school, I'm going to do it. Or if I have another commitment, or I have a volleyball game that I'm playing in because I'm in part of a league, then you go. And the more that we can do this, and then you're modeling it for everyone, right? So you have like the collateral effects. That's how change happens. And, I think, oh gosh, I forget this quote, the whole idea of just like, change like starts with one person, but it kind of does, because you can't control what anyone else is doing. You can only control yourself. And if we can be supervisors and leaders that are like, hey, yeah, sometimes you are going to have to stay late, and sometimes like stuff does go down, because that is life. But as much as possible, we're trying to have like, more boundaries around it and just kind of respect people's time. That's how this change starts to become more integrated into the kind of like standard operating procedure of like how we do this work, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering that, Sarah. I meant to get back to that one. Yes. So just once again, everyone, I did put the Google form in the chat. Please make sure you fill that out with all your information, and then you should get your certificate. And truly, I love to connect with all of you. So feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My email is amy@Rasmus. And if you want to learn more about our platform, you can check out our website and book a demo. But we are truly a company that is all about supporting and helping leaders in the field of ABA and supervisors, and making your jobs easier so that we can help more kiddos. So if there's anything that you need help with, feel free to reach out to me, even if you don't think it's technology related. I've been in the field for a while, and I truly love connecting with all of you. So thank you again, Sarah, for joining us. And the last word was matters.
Yeah.
So
matters,
I see that on the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And thank you all so much for being here.